We'll do like we have in the past, is he'll put the flag up on the screen and I'll read the Pledge of Allegiance. If you want to say it along, that's great. If not, well, that's your business.
Okay, we are live on YouTube, Mayor.
Thank you. I welcome you to the February 23rd Board of Alderman meeting. Call this meeting to order. We'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. It'll be led virtually here, and there'll be a flag on the screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the preamble to the Missouri Constitution: we, the people of Missouri, with profound reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe and grateful for his goodness, do establish this Constitution for the better government of the state. Now, Jamie Roush has been asked to give the invocation.
Thank you. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, I come before you tonight, and I thank you so much for who you are, for wisdom, for understanding, and for truth, Lord. All comes from you. I ask you tonight, Lord, that you would be over this board meeting in our city. Thank you for the staff members that you've given to us. And Father, I reach out to you tonight to pray for those of us staff members. Some of them have had family members with some major health issues. And Father, we all know how that feels. And I just ask you, Lord, for healing on them and for peace. I pray for the decisions that are made here tonight and the discussion, that it would be to your glory and to your honor. And in everything I pray, Lord Jesus, thank you for your salvation and the gift that you gave us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Jimmy, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
King,
Present.
Whitus,
Here.
Simmons,
Here.
Akers,
Here.
Skanes,
Here.
Milton,
Here.
C.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Again, I welcome you to the board meeting tonight. I would like to ask the city clerk to read the introduction for the virtual meeting. Madam Clerk.
This meeting is being held virtually due to the COVID-19 virus and the recommendations of the Centers for Disease Control, along with the state and city emergency proclamations that are in effect. We will review our procedures for conducting tonight's meeting. Participants in this meeting who will be joining the meeting virtually include members of the Board of Aldermen and city staff. The microphones of all board members and staff members participating in the meeting should be muted at all times so as not to impede the ability of meeting participants and observers to hear the proceedings. Members of the board or staff who wish to speak will be recognized by the mayor. Members of the public were invited to speak by signing up prior to tonight's meeting by using a link to a speaker sign-up form for virtual meetings. Those who have signed up will be able to speak on the items they requested to speak on. Please note public comments will be limited to 5 minutes and discussion on all other agenda items will be 3 minutes unless additional time is allowed by the mayor. The speaker will be notified when there's 30 seconds remaining of their allotted speaking time. Mayor, please note we have speakers signed up to speak during public comment and on the items 8 and 15. The voting procedures for tonight's meeting will be by roll call vote on every action item before the board. The city clerk will call the name of each board member for their vote and will announce the results. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is the public comment section of the Board of Aldermen meeting. At this time, the board will hear citizens who have signed up to speak virtually using the speaker sign-up form from the virtual meetings. Understand we have several. Madam Clerk, will you introduce?
We have one speaker for public comment tonight. It's Bo DeJager, 106 South Drive, Branson, Missouri, and he's speaking on COVID.
Mr. DeJager, can you hear us okay? Looks like you're muted at the moment. There you go.
Yep. I couldn't remember if it was star or pound.
It's okay. Your 5 minutes will begin now, sir.
All right. Good evening, gentlemen. Speaking on the same topic that we've been talking about. I first want to start off by talking about the transparency we have right now. I was told a couple weeks ago during an Alderman meeting that I'm supposed to contact my Alderman and Mayor directly and not through public comment because you will not respond. I now have sent multiple emails and only gotten a response from one of my Aldermen, and his response was to contact our city administrator or any city workers. I believe that's why we voted in by wards, and I'm contacting directly and generally only to the people that would be willing to listen to me. So greatly unearthing to be pushed off to other people and not be listened to by our own elected officials. So carrying on, I want to talk about why are we having a virtual meeting? If masks work, and I want to bring back that all the way at the beginning when we mandated the masks, we had our head CEO of Steve Edwards come in and tell us that masks, they work. They work. He didn't give us any negative excuse. He didn't give us a percentage of they only work a percentage. So for Just Say to say on last Thursday to say that masks, they don't work 100%. Well, our officials that we're supposed to listen to here in Cheney County are telling us that masks, they work, and that's the best information they'll give us. And now we're being told by our Board of Aldermen that they don't work 100%, which we've been saying since the beginning. You're telling us to wear something that isn't really even effective. So you guys need to make up your mind, which clearly you have in mandating this, but it doesn't make any sense, and you're making a lot of people frustrated in continuing this tyranny. We just heard that our cases are drastically dropping. They're continually dropping with or without our vaccines because we haven't had a high amount of vaccine rollout. So we can't just keep waiting for a vaccine, and that's not a good enough excuse of why we have to be wearing these masks all the time. You very well need to regard whether or not we continue that. I know all of you except one think it's too early to remove them. To a point that I heard is we need to compare to Hollister, whether you believe it or not. They don't have a mandate, and you still have people wearing them there by choice. So whether you think that makes any sense or not, people are doing it on their own free will, and now you're telling us here in Branson as residents that we need to be babysat and told that we need to wear them against our will, against our choice of wearing them or not. They are a prime example because they're not far away. They're not from California. Blah. They're a prime example of people will or will not wear that based upon their decisions, and we should have the same right to do so. But clearly, as we've heard from Just Say again, he just likes to stick his foot in his mouth and say that we don't actually want our freedoms. Why would we want to be the last bastion of freedom in America? Why would we want that? I'm pretty sure there's lots of people that would like to be, obviously we don't want the whole country to be locked down and everything, but if there's going to be one place that's heavily allowed their freedoms, I'd like it to be Branson. And all the people that are coming here, they would still have the same right to pick and choose the businesses they go to, whether they wear it or not wear it. They can look up on the website. I'm sure the businesses will have their own due diligence of letting people know if they have a mandate at their business or not. But telling everybody and thinking we're going to get more people here to the city of Branson because we have a mask mandate is bogus, because you're only hearing one side of the story. There are plenty of people out there that won't come here because we have a mask mandate. I think it's very irresponsible going back to telling people to wear a mask, even though you fully aware that it's not fully effective. You're giving people false hope, false belief in a mask. It just doesn't make sense. There's been testimony, even when we had our in-person mask mandate discussion, the only people that said, or people willingly came out and said that they had COVID or had gotten COVID, and they wore a mask nonstop all the time and then quarantined. So they're still willing to able to get COVID, and yet plenty of us that have not worn a mask at all. And I will gladly say I don't wear a mask anywhere in Branson. I think it's a joke, and I think it needs to go away. But
Your time
I
is
haven't
up.
got COVID. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. No other speakers in the public comment section. Ready to move on. This is the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers signed up for any part of the consent agenda items or any board members that would like to have something moved down? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you please read the items on the consent agenda?
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Alderman minutes for the February 9th, 2021 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Planning Commission minutes for the January 5th, 2021 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt advisory park board minutes for the November 17th, 2020 meeting. Final reading of Bill number 5958, an ordinance accepting the proposal of Gulf States Distributors Incorporated to provide ammunition for the police department and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill number 5959, an ordinance approving the addendum with Taney County for 911 emergency telephone system and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill number 5960, an ordinance accepting the proposal of Ben E. Keep Company for concession supplies and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill number 5961, an ordinance accepting the proposal of Pippin Wholesale Company for concession supplies and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The floor is open for a motion approving all items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
There's a
Second.
motion. There is a second. Jamie, was that your second?
Yes.
All right. Madam Clerk, would you now provide a roll call vote for the consent agenda?
Game,
Approved.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, it passes with a vote of 6-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Going to the regular agenda, under item number 8, it's a first reading of bill number 5962. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5962, an ordinance approving high-density residential HDR zoning for the properties located at 121 Linhart Lane, Branson, Missouri. This bill was postponed on its first reading during the February 9th, 2021 regular meeting. It has had a motion and a second and is ready for additional discussion and a vote.
Thank you. Begin with a staff report from Joe Hornicle.
Mayor, members of the board, good evening.
Good evening.
Obviously, we've given our staff report during the last meeting, so we're not going to go back through that information. We simply wanted to highlight to you all that in addition to exhibits 1, 2, and 3 behind the staff report that were provided at the past meeting, we've since added exhibits 4 and 5 that I'm going to go through this evening. Exhibit 4 is a plan of Chateau Mountain as requested by you all. I'll actually get to that here in a little bit, but first I wanted to start with the graphic that's exhibit 5 behind our staff report. There was a lot of discussion about whether people were for or against this within Friendly Hills subdivision, and we thought the best way to portray this would be through this graphic. We've also got it kind of skinned 3 ways, if you will, that we'll go through. The first here is quite simply either positive or negative, and we've viewed anyone that has provided a document that states they're not opposed to this request as being positive. Otherwise, the negative response was that they were opposed to it. You can see here that there's 13 properties out of the 22 that have been counted within the Friendly Hills subdivision, or 59%, that are shown in green that are not opposed to this request. On the flip side, there's the 7 colored in red, or 32% of the properties that are opposed. I also want to make mention of the 2 properties in yellow in the middle. When we prepared this, did not share any opinion to us whether they were opposed or not opposed. However, since then, we have heard from the property owner. It is Mark Rays, and he is now not opposed to the request. So that increases the not opposed amount to 15, which is 68%, and opposed still remains at 7 at the 32. As I mentioned, we've also looked at this subdivision two other ways. The second way is by owner. This graphic here on the screen is by property. By owner, there are 9 unique owners within Friendly Hills subdivision. Of those, 5 or 56% are not opposed, leaving 4 being opposed, or 44%. The final amount is by land area. That area is shown in green and yellow. As I mentioned, the yellow now being green, represents 46.5 acres out of the 60 acres within Friendly Hills, or 78%. That leaves the opposed or red area being 13.5 acres, or 23%. So in all 3 cases, over 50% or a majority is represented as being not opposed to this request within Friendly Hills. As I mentioned, next we wanted to show the plan that's been provided by the applicant. This is actually a development plan for the development to be known as Chateau Mountain. I know it may be difficult to see, but the majority of this development happens to be to the east of the properties we're talking about this evening. If you see along the left side of the plan, there's a white kind of note that's called out, and just above that it says Lot 1. Just below that is Lot 2. Those are the 2 lots that are included within tonight's request. Particularly Lot 2 is the area where Chateau Mountain development will be expanded on, with approximately 4 units that are outlined there on the screen, as well as some parking to serve those units. There's also a tree line buffer that's provided along Lenhart Lane there, again, on the left side or west side of your screen, simply to have this available for you all to view. Additionally, I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but we do have about 6 images that we believe shows the relationship between the development at Chateau Mountain and the road grade here you see in yellow, which is Lenhart Lane. Just again, there were some comments last meeting about the topography difference between Friendly Hills and the Chateau Mountain development. And these pictures that were provided by the applicant, we believe supports that discussion that occurred at the last meeting. So with that, I'm going to quickly just go back to the original graphic so we have that on screen for reference. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Joel. I understand that we have some speakers tonight. Madam Clerk, would you introduce the speakers?
Your Honor, our first speaker tonight is Timothy Davis, P.O. Box 1625, Branson, Missouri. And he did provide handouts that I had emailed out to the board earlier.
Mr. Davis, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can.
We can.
Mayor Ed, it's lovely to see you as always. It's always a treat when we get to talk to each other. I wanted to comment on Joel's count of the lots. I think on the Exhibit 5 there was a mistake in the count, because Deborah Johnston has lots 18, 19, and 20. She has 3 lots, not 2. Sean and Ruby Martinez have lots 11, 12, and 13. Again, 3 lots, not 2. Wayne and Gail Drummond have 2 lots, numbers 16 and 17. Mark and Liz Kirby have 1 lot, that's lot number 3. I have 3 lots, lots numbers 4, 5, and 6. So I do think this affects the count of who's in favor and who's not in favor. Also, Joel indicated that he treated my 3 lots as a positive. I think they're probably portrayed as green on Exhibit 5. I've never indicated that I was in favor of the proposal. And things have happened recently. For example, in after annexation, ripping down some of the ancient trees, maybe 10 to 20 large trees on lot 2. I don't know if it was done with a permit from the city or not. I assume not, but I don't know. But even if there was a permit from the city, the actions of taking down the ancient trees and then attempting to create small lots with undersized buildings is a direct attack, a current attack on today on my property rights under the covenants. So for this reason, I don't think it's correct. In fact, it would actually be overtly wrong to count my 3 lots or me as a positive, as being in favor of the proposal. With this in view, of the 24 lots in the subdivision, we know that 12 of them have overtly said they are not supportive. And that's also 12 of the 24 are overtly not supportive. 5 of 9 owners are not supportive. In light of that, thanks, Mayor Ed and everyone else for listening to my observations. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Madam Clerk, next speaker.
Steve Redford. His address is 640 State Highway 248, number 17, Branson, Missouri.
I am looking at our attendee list, and I do not see Mr. Redford in the list of speakers that are connected right now. Just double checking here. No.
Okay. Do we have another speaker?
Yes, Your Honor. Carl Finkenbinder, 100 Prairie Dunes Drive, Suite 200, Branson, Missouri.
Mr. Finkenbinder, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay. Am I supposed to attend by video? I'm not sure if I see me or not.
You will be audio only,
Okay.
but they can hear you and speak to you.
Okay. I apologize in advance due to a miscommunication. I didn't realize it was by Zoom. So, and I talked to Chad earlier today, the IT guy. He had mentioned I had made a video for tonight for my presentation. Is it possible to play that video instead of me talking now? Because that outlines a couple of arguments that I'd like to make for tonight's meeting.
I have the video queued up and I can hit play. I just want to preface this with I think it'll go fine, but sometimes on Zoom, when you play video, the audio and the video is not exactly in sync, but it should work okay. I just wanted to let you guys know in advance.
Will it fall under the 3-minute guideline?
Yes, Your Honor. It's exactly 3 minutes.
I'll begin now.
Good evening, council members. My name is Carl Finkenbinder, and I'm an attorney for Lifestyle Contractors, LLC, which is the applicant tonight on the rezoning request. I've got a couple of brief points I'd like to bring up to the council members. The first point I'd like to make is that the original annexation and classification of this property in November of 2020 as agricultural was improper and should be remedied tonight. What I mean by that is section 9434 of the code states that in an annexation plan, it's going to be zoned agricultural unless the plan says otherwise. And I'm going to quote specifically from the ordinance here. It says that it's zoned agricultural unless otherwise indicated in the annexation plan of intent. In November of 2020, the annexation plan of intent clearly classified this proposal as high-density residential. That was the city staff's recommendation, and it was a request from my client. At that juncture, the city council had two options before it. Option number 1 was to reject the annexation in its entirety. Option number 2 would have been to approve the annexation as and bring it in as high-density residential. What occurred instead was that the City Council approved the annexation but rejected our request for zoning. That does not make sense under the code and leaves us in a situation where on-site it's inconsistent with its current use. At this point in time, we have a residential home sitting on the lots that is now zoned agricultural. That cannot be the intent of the statute or the ordinances, and furthermore is inconsistent with 9432 of the code, which sets forth the different classifications of zoning and states that residential homes should be zoned as residential. In conclusion of this point, we'd state that this is an opportunity for the council members to remedy the mistake that was made in November and classify this as high-density residential. The second point I'll keep very brief, and that is simply that we believe that it would be improper for the City Council members to consider opinions of non-citizens of Branson. So in other words, tonight, as it hears from different people, either opposed or for this application, we believe that since the City Council members are elected by the members and citizens of Branson, that they are there to represent their interests and their interest only, which as of tonight, my client is a citizen of Branson and it should consider its request, but for those who are not members or citizens of Branson, it should politely decline to consider those opinions as part of its decision-making process. Thank you for your time.
Any additional comments from speakers?
Your next speaker is Scott Earls, 218 Linhart Lane, Branson, Missouri.
Mayor, I'm looking through the list right now. Yeah, I do not see Scott Earls present right now in the meeting. So,
do we have another speaker?
Yes, Your Honor. Our next speaker would be Wayne Drummond, 186 Friendly Hills Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Mr. Drummond, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Okay. I can hear you. Okay.
Good. Good. You can begin now. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I hate to have to keep bringing this up, but of the 2 lots that my wife and I own, it's listed on the graphic as I do on 3 and 4. We will never sell and will always remain strongly opposed to high-density residential. Now, this property has been through a number of hoops, and with the young lawyer, the latest trick is to try to get those who are not affected, for example, non-members of the city of Branson, so that their vote will not count. But the reality is that we all walked into this neighborhood, Friendly Hill, and as Tim Davis said, the count was wrong, and count our lots as strongly opposed, and count his 3 lots as opposed, and in addition, or certainly not green. So we are still strongly opposed to having high-density residential move into our neighborhood. And I will stop right there and just say will always be opposed to it, we plan to stay here until the day we die. It's a great neighborhood, and we plan to keep it that way. Thank you for listening to me. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond. Madam Clerk, do we have any other speakers?
We have one more speaker on this item. It's Sean Martinez,
Okay.
I'm sorry, 271 Linhart Drive, Branson, Missouri. And handouts were also sent to the board prior to the meeting tonight.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Martinez.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board, for allowing me to address Bill number 5962. I am a trustee and president on behalf of Friendly Hills Subdivision Property Owners Association. I own lots 11, 12, and 13. I was elected to uphold the covenants of Friendly Hills Subdivision, which was filed on March 4th, 1981. In our previous meeting, Friendly Hills Subdivision was asked to find out where the majority of property owners sided. But before I do, I want to make a point of moral versus legal. I posed the question or thought, if something is legally right, is it always morally right? And just because someone has the legal right to do something, is it also morally right? Should a moral decision have a part to play here this evening? Back on October 27, 2020, and in our last meeting, it was presented before the board, Branson Community Plan 2030, that this HDR zoning change does not line up with Branson's community plan. Now, going back to the job at hand of what the majority of the homeowners of Friendly Hills want, first, I propose that lots 1 and 2 should not be included in this vote, regardless if this outside builder has the majority tonight. And if you look back on the map that I sent in, that we have, there's 3 colors representing here: the red, which would be opposition, the green, which would be for consent, and the yellow, which would be neutral. And there are 12 lots here that are in opposition, very clearly stated this evening. We show 8 lots that are for it. And then we have, particularly, I want to draw your attention to 14 and 15, which are in yellow, and they are neutral. I do not know anything about them being anything else. So that is unclear if Joel is mentioning anything else about those lots. And then in lots 1 and 2, they're highlighted in yellow as well. Those lots I propose again, they should not be included in this moral decision tonight, because the board is asking if what the majority of what the owners want here, and particularly the homeowners. For the record, lots owners 7, 8, 9, and 10, and lots owners 21, 23, 24, and 23 and 24 had previously agreed and signed the Friendly Hills Subdivision 4th Amendment to the covenant, specifically regarding nightly rentals, and dated July 13, 2020. Also, for the record, there are 24 lots clearly stated here, not 22, as what I've heard by Joel and anyone else. And also, my last thing is, I want to say thank you, Mayor, and the board of the members of the board, for being so gracious with your time with me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, stopwatch is going. All right. Madam Clerk, of any of the earlier speakers that were not on, have they come on?
Mr. Forster, Director Forster would have to look. I do not see that.
Okay.
I'm looking right now, Mayor, and cross-referencing the list to make sure I don't miss anyone. And essentially, Mr. Earls is still not connected. There was a video that he did submit with his permission to speak, but unfortunately, he is not present. So that's where we're at, Mr. Mayor.
And the other one was Mr. Redford?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking for Mr. Redford. And I do not see Mr. Redford as an attendee either.
Okay. Then, Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers that you have?
That's all we have for this item.
Thank you. All right. At this time, discussion. Any alderman wish to share or talk? Julia, I see you put your hand up.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't know if this is a question more appropriate for Joel or Chris Lebec or both, but the presentation by Attorney Finkenbinder stated that the current residents, there's a home sitting on agricultural zoning, which is inconsistent with our current city code. I'd like to confirm that or have that confirmed if that's true. And if so, what are the potential implications of that?
I can answer that question. So our agricultural zoning district does allow single-family detached residential structures. And that's what the existing structure on this property would be classified as. So it's allowed, it's not a nonconformity, so no issue there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other alderman?
Mr. Mayor,
Bill.
Again, I'm a little bit confused in all this. How to ask this? Joel, this is already inside the city limits of Branson, or are we annexing it? Or are we changing? I'm getting some confusing things where they have stated things that conflict with official report that we got.
Sure. No, the two properties that are included in tonight's request have been annexed into the city. And we are just attempting to rezone them at this time from agricultural.
Okay. Now, the second part of that, the attorney's description of this, is that true and accurate, do you think?
You know,
I know you're not an attorney. I get it.
Yeah, I was going to say it may be best to get Chris's advice on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Director Hornicle. I'll stand on Joel's previous statement with regards to agricultural zoning and single-family detached residential. That is accurate and that is legal under our code. To Attorney Finkenbinder's second point with regards to this board's ability to consider information from residents or citizens outside of city limits. This board can do that. There is case law that supports that. Specifically, there is a case, Allen v. Cofield, that talks about this very scenario where you have a zoning request on a piece of property at the outskirts of the municipal limits of the city. And in context with that, a board, the city council can consider residents and adjacent parcels that are outside of city limits. So that can be one of the factors you use in arriving at your decision here tonight. So I take issue with both those statements. Just want to point that out to the board. Joel is accurate. And I'm just going to read a small snippet from this case. And I think this is very telling. It says that common sense and wise public policy require an opportunity for property owners to be heard before ordinances which substantially affect their property rights are adopted. Indeed, the due process clause of the 14th Amendment requires at a minimum that deprivation of life, liberty, or property by adjudication be preceded by notice and opportunity for hearing. So what in simple terms, what that basically means is that you can consider this information, you can consider the effects that this will have on adjacent property owners, whether or not they are within city limits or not. So I'll stop there if anybody has any questions.
My question would go, how is doing what we're considering tonight be considered to be adverse impact on the surrounding properties? When I see development all around it, and there seems to be this little island in the middle, I'm trying to grasp that. It seems like all around it, it's going to the direction of what this is going to. Joel, can you hit on that?
Yeah, I'll do my best. So in our zoning code, it talks about where zoning district boundaries are most appropriate. And zoning district boundaries are most appropriate along natural features, along roadways, more so than at property lines. Now that's possible. You can have zoning district boundaries on property lines, obviously. So we view the expansion of the existing high density residential zoning district, which is Chateau Cove and Chateau Mountain within the city limits to the east. The expansion of that development to these two lots, we believe, is consistent with our zoning district, that it's extending to a street. We understand that Friendly Hills is an existing subdivision, and they have stated their covenants and restrictions at multiple points throughout this process. But again, we simply can point out that as a city, we are not able to enforce those covenants and restrictions. We are not a party to those covenants and restrictions. So we are looking at it simply as the zoning district that is beneficial to orderly development within the city limits of Branson.
What was P&Z's recommendation, to refresh my memory on
Sure.
moving forward on this?
Yeah, back in October of last year, it was unanimous 6-0 in favor of the request.
And what they're talking about is moving it to high density residential. Will it affect what's built on that lot, agricultural versus high density?
Sure. So the agricultural district is very limiting in what's allowed to be developed in that zoning district. And high density residential, simply by its name alone, points out that you can increase the density of development allowed on that property. So by the applicant's request, it does increase the development potential of that property. But as shown on the plan that's been provided this evening, albeit I would not encourage you to make your decision solely based on that plan. I would make it based on what is possible within that zoning district. But they are showing only 4 units being developed on that southern property, and the existing single family home being retained on the northern property.
Is it possible to put that display up, giving us an idea somewhere of the boundaries of the city of Branson versus what's in the county?
Sure, just bear with me here as I reshare it.
Makes it difficult in Zoom to follow all this. I don't know about the rest of you.
Can everybody see it?
It's coming.
Okay.
There it is.
Now I'm going to actually scroll all the way to the end of this where we have our vicinity maps, and I think that will point out what you're asking. So this is a more clear depiction of the city limits. Anything that I will say that the 2 outlined in red have been annexed. I would like to be clear about that. This was made back in October when we first started with this item. And since that time also, the property immediately to the south of those outlined in red has also been annexed. But everything else that is kind of under a washed out white, that would be property that's outside the city limits, if you can see that differentiation. I can, if it's also helpful, I'll pan to the next vicinity map that we also included with our staff report. This shows existing zoning of properties. Again, those in red have not been updated to agricultural, which is the light green that you also see over to the northeast. But you can see that the properties that are contiguous and adjacent to these 2 properties outlined in red are very much the brown or high density residential. And again, that goes back to the earlier comment regarding the expansion of that development onto these 2 properties, and gives, good reason and purpose to that request.
So going back to my question, this area here is surrounded by high density residential. You showed one that was a close up of the construction around it. And that's what I'm trying to get right in my mind. I was unable to go down there because we had a little bit of ice and snow.
Let me pan back to the plan if that's
There
what
you
you're
go.
referring to.
No, you went too far.
I'm sorry.
You went too far. You went 1 too far. There. Where is this lot within the scope of this right here that we're talking about?
So if you can see, there's the brick home on the top of the hill, kind
Yes.
of just right center.
Right.
So that is the existing home within the northern property of the 2 properties being requested for the zoning change. Just to the south of that if you will, between that brick home, and you can see the next home there kind of in the left portion of the screen behind some trees. So that's the adjacent property. So all the land in between that, including the brick house on top of the hill, is included within this request.
So across the street, that's high density residential. Am I right?
No, we're actually standing on the Chateau Mountain Development, or the view of this picture is standing within the Chateau Mountain Development, looking to the west towards Friendly Hills.
Okay.
So Highway 265 is just behind this photograph.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other alderman with questions? Mr. Milton?
I had a question for Joel. Joel, how does the number square from what's been presented, that from Tim Davis and from Sean, that their count is there's 12 no's and 2 neutrals? How does that square with your numbers?
Sure. So there's two things I'd like to kind of hit on there. The first being, if we acknowledge there's 24 instead of 22 lots, that only changes the percentages to being not opposed or no objection to 62.5%, and opposed to 37.5%. So still doesn't get over the threshold I believe they think exists. We simply, when we created that graphic, went off of the Taney County mapping information. And so that's how we came up with the 22 lots. We do recognize that from time to time, the county, they combine lots even when they're legally not, they've not been combined. So that's why, just simply put, we're willing to recognize that there's 24 instead of 22 lots. But again, with 15 being not opposed or not objection to the request and 9 being opposed, it's still that the majority by our count is not opposed or has no objection to the request. As for the 2 lots that were shown on that graphic in yellow, as I mentioned at the beginning, we did receive the same document that is in the staff report for the other properties that state about 5 bullet points, with the 5th one being that they don't object to this request. It just didn't come in time to provide that to you all within our staff report, but I do have that in hand, and I'm happy to email that to you after the meeting.
Joel, would you help me with those percentages?
Sure.
That you were throwing out? If there's 12 opposed.
I get 9 opposed. I have yet to understand how there's 12 opposed. The only way I can get to 12 is if they count Mr. Davis's 3 lots as joining that group. However, as provided in our staff report within Exhibit 3, I just simply point out that letter again that is from Mr. Tim Davis, that at the second line in the second paragraph simply states that I am not opposing the application to rezone. So again, when we're comparing apples to apples, I understand he may not be representing that same statement this evening, but we have a letter from him, dated back on December the 31st of 2020. That's been in all of our staff reports since, that again simply states that he is not opposing this application.
Okay, but today's February 23rd, and tonight we heard from Tim Davis, and if I understood him correctly, he is opposing.
Yeah, and so if we follow that, there would be 12 and 12, so it would be an even split, 12 opposed and 12 not opposed.
But aren't there 2 neutrals?
No, those 2 neutrals have since provided documentation that they're not opposed, so there are no longer any neutrals.
So the 2 neutrals went to opposed or not opposed?
The 2 neutrals went to being not opposed.
So then what you're saying, and I don't know if Sean or Tim Davis are still on the line. So then what you're saying is what we're dealing with is 12 to 12, right? 12 opposed it and 12 are for it.
If we're considering that Mr. Davis has changed his opinion, yes.
Okay, but Joel, with all due respect, Tim Davis
Sure.
was speaking to us tonight, and he said he was opposed.
Understood.
Any additional questions or comments?
Is there,
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Simmons?
Let me mute. Go ahead.
Okay,
and I was just,
Joel,
Sorry.
I'm sorry,
Mr. Simmons.
Joel, on the picture that you had up there for Bill a few minutes ago, it appeared that there's a possibility, has construction already started on these lots?
Yes, so the applicant did pull a footing and foundation permit. That was a huge risk on their part doing so before this is decided. If you know, it's decided that they're not allowed to rezone their property and remain agriculture, then they would not be able to continue building. We have not issued a building permit for those buildings to be constructed, but again, they have been issued a footing and foundation permit.
Also, one more question, the lot immediately south of these lots that we have now brought into the city also, did it not show on your map as being opposed to this?
Yes, they are one of the ones that have been counted as being opposed. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Milton?
Joel, so you're saying that they've already started construction on these lots?
Yes, so footing and foundation is a way for developers, builders to kind of get ahead of the process. Again, it's a huge risk. We let them know that whenever they pull that permit, that they have that ability to do so. It's just if they're not approved to continue on, then it needs to be removed, which is why we require a bond per code to be put in place with that footing and foundation permit.
Thank you.
Ms. Julie King?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just out of curiosity, how long can this can continue to get kicked down the road? If our alderman majority vote against this evening, does this just continue to reappear on the agenda going forward?
Yeah, the applicant obviously has the opportunity per code to make that request as much as they want. They pay the application fee, they pay the notices that are required by the state statute, and they can continue to go on.
Alderwoman King, just another observation to your question. The applicant also has the ability under state law to de-annex as well. That is a choice that they can do. They can proceed over in state court with a de-annexation petition within 5 years. So again, I just want to make everybody clear that this is not the only avenue available to the applicant at this point.
Can we, at this point in time, do kind of a summary of what the alderman would vote on? Obviously, we have, and we had the motion last time, but Madam Clerk, could I have you please read what the alderman would be voting on?
Mayor, can I speak before we go there?
Sure, Jeff.
Okay, so, and maybe I'll confirm this with Joel. As far as the foundation, did they just frame it up or did they actually pour concrete?
So the foundation and forms have been placed for the concrete, yes.
Right, so yeah, so they've got time and labor in there and
Sure.
They haven't poured concrete.
The foundations have been poured, yes.
Okay, just the foundations, not slabs.
That's right, that's right.
Okay, so I don't know the exact count of the units that are already up in Chateau Mountain. Is it like 25, 30?
I'd have to double back, but that's roughly.
It's between 20 or 30.
Right.
So of let's say it's 25. How many of those lots are HDR?
All of the ones that are actively under construction with building permits are all zoned HDR.
Correct. So let's say you're standing on the curb up there on lot 1, which is or lot 2, which is the empty lot. You can see those 25 to 30 units as you stand there on that empty lot.
Yes.
Okay. So down the road, you have 47 units. And I'm going to assume, well, I know they're all HDR also. And you can see that whole project as you stand on the curb in the middle of that lot, that empty lot. And all that foreground in front of it is all HDR. and it's units that are, I mean, within view of anywhere you are up on that, in that subdivision. So my thinking here is, I'm not unsympathetic with the fact that these people aren't City of Branson residents. But what I look at is, like you said, when it makes sense, you know, this is what we do as a city, request annexation and try to provide that and facilitate them. And it's not like these two lots are the first ones that have asked to do that. It's all been done. The whole project's almost complete. Then if you go down the hill to Majestic, God, you know, the one that burned down, there's, I mean, you know, we have water and sewer down there. They're all annexed into the city. So this whole Friendly Hills is surrounded by these HDR projects already. So, you know, as an alderman, I look at the fact that it seems like everybody's leaning towards Caney County residents. And again, I'm not unsympathetic to their building something in their backyard, but so we're not serving the residents of Branson. And then, you know, about the jobs and the work, those 4 units are providing work for people. We're not giving the contractor the ability to provide those jobs for people. And the project, it just makes sense, you know, for us to do that as a city. So those are my comments.
Mr. Milton?
I feel the opposite. I think we need to be good neighbors. I think putting myself in a homeowner's position out at Friendly Hills, if I bought those lots and they're good sized lots and that's what I intended, boy, I'd sure, unless the majority change their mind, I'd sure want to maintain the open space in what I've purchased and thought I would own. So I'd be voting no.
Any other aldermen have any comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm a little confused by Tim's action. You submit a letter saying you support it, and then you come on and say you're against it. I really would like to hear from him, and I don't know if Tim's still in the loop or not, but that's just real confusing to me. If I sign a document saying that I support it and or don't oppose it, and then I come on, I don't, the weight of this just a little weird. I'd really like to know.
I can see Mr. Davis currently on as an attendee. That obviously is however you want to handle that. I'm just giving you the information.
The mayor would like to allow Mr. Davis to answer the questions of the alderman.
Sir, I will bring him into the meeting. One moment. Mr. Davis. I think you're still muted. Mr. Davis, are you there? Mayor, it's possible that he has his device on, but maybe isn't at it at this time, his computer, his laptop. I mean, I'm not sure. I can see that he's on. Well, I think he just dropped off. Yeah,
Your Honor, I just want to second with what Alderman Skane said. You know, reading the material that we got before the meeting, looking at the map of lots, owners, acreage, the majority are not opposed to this, made it a very clear decision for me before the session. And then we get the public comments and they're conflicting with the documentation that's already been provided. And it kind of puts us in a whirlwind at the last minute.
I do see Mr. David back on if you'd like to try that one more time. I think he may have hit something incorrectly. I'm not sure. All right, Mr. Davis, you are there again. If you could unmute. I think you're there now. Is that right?
There he is.
Yes. Oh, Bill,
Alderman
great to
Skane,
see you.
Please restate your question to Mr. Davis.
Okay, Tim, this is Bill. I'm confused on, I'm trying to reach a good solid decision, which is based on a myriad of data, but we have the document from you saying you're not opposed. and then tonight is something simple. What happened in the interim to change your mind? Or I'm trying to get inside the mind of Minota and figure out why the written document and then different tonight is all, buddy.
Yes, Bill, I wanted to point out, I think in the original, when Joel was going over the lot owners and the numbers, there was some lots listed as green lit or as positive. And I think mine were among those listed as green lit or as positive. And I wanted to make sure that the Alderman understood that I'm not actually supporting or in favor of the project. There are some things happening, especially quite recently, particularly the destruction of the trees. Some of them as much as 2 feet in diameter, that were truly disappointing and almost dispiriting to see that happening just recently, even after annexation. And so, even though I suppose in theory a project could be put in that was high density, that would be attractive and a benefit to the area, I'm certainly not in favor of the recent destruction of the trees and landscape that's come on. So you can say, even though I'm not overtly opposed in theory to high density, you can't say that I'm in favor of what's going on at present, if that makes sense.
I understand.
Thank
So
you.
would it be fair to say that your 3 would be kicked out entirely? That they would not be part of the count because you're neither for or against?
Maybe it's up to the Alderman. There's no standard by which to other than the mayor's preference or the Alderman's preference as on how to view my lots in the count. It's up to you, to your choice. It's not, there's no, whatever you choose is going to be correct.
Mayor, I would point out that Mr. Finkenbinder has his hand raised. Again, I'm just passing on information to you as a facilitator.
Do any of the aldermen wish to hear what Mr. Finkenbinder has to say?
Yes, sir, I would like to hear.
Yes, thank you.
Chad, please make him available.
I'll switch from Mr. Davis to him one moment. Mr. Finkenbinder, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay. Thank you for the additional time that you're allowing me. Just briefly, I'll give credence to Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, as you all know, is a lawyer, and he is good at parsing words. I think it's important, and I think if you would ask him directly, what you'll find is that he is not, I think it's specific. The specific question is Tim Davis opposed to the specific request tonight of changing the zoning to high density residential? If you ask him the direct question, are you opposed to the rezoning of these lots to high density residential? I believe the exact answer to that question would be no. That's all.
Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I didn't know we'd be into splitting hairs tonight.
Mr. P?
So Joel, I don't know if you can fire up your microphone there, but have we already set precedent in the count under the same circumstances of what Mr. Davis said? He's neither for or against it.
So
is there a criteria how we're counting that?
So all the documentation that's been provided to us states them as being not opposed, including Mr. Davis's letter, as I mentioned, from December the 31st. Again, we realize there's 10 different ways to split hairs or however you want to make the phrase. So we simply approached it as the information we had as those being not opposed or being opposed. We're not representing with the graphic that they're in favor of, that they're approval or whatever. I mean, we have simply stated, and the graphic shows, the green represents not opposed and red represents being opposed.
Thank you. And of course, I'm on P&Z, so I sort of know the answer to this, but since I've been on there, I would say we've done this 10, 12, 14 times maybe. Is there any difference in what we did in those 12 to 14 times that we're doing here?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, it is a regular process to go through zoning after annexation's complete, just as these two properties are in process to do. The Planning Commission, I believe, gives them all the time and the energy and the proper review, just as they did with these two, and have provided a recommendation to approve the applicant's request of high density residential.
Right. And if after thorough investigation and discussions, and based on most of the people that are on planning and zoning are very proficient in this, and they voted unanimously to approve this project. And then, of course, staff has recommended this project also. So I'm a little confused. You know, I don't want to say we're overthinking this, but this is a pretty standard type of thing. I know there's opposition to it, but we do this all the time with opposition as well. And a lot of times that opposition, well, I only say a lot of times, all of the times I've been there, it's been opposition from city residents. And we've still went ahead with the project. So I just want to get it all out there as far as that. I don't really think this is any different than anything we do on not a daily basis, but on a routine basis.
Any other Alderman comments before yes, Julia King.
This is my last question, and it's for Joel. Joel, I know that Mr. Davis commented that he was not happy with the tree removal that is currently taking place. I saw a tree line in some of the plans that you presented. Does that at all address the same area that he's unhappy with?
It does. The applicant on their plan have shown, you know, what courtesy they can to Friendly Hills by, again, it's a plan. I just want to be very clear about that, but to show a buffer, a planted buffer along that road where trees have been removed from, to provide a clear break, a visibility break for the residents of Friendly Hills into the Chateau Mountain development. Additionally, there also has been a modification in their development to not have any connection to that roadway to the west. So no vehicular connection point out to Friendly Hills on that Friendly Hills Drive to the west.
Thank you, Joel.
Did that answer? Mr. Milton, you have your, and then Bob Simmons.
Joel, when you say it's a plan, does that mean it's a requirement to put a tree line in there, or that's just a plan?
So it's not required that they provide that landscaping. There are perimeter requirements, but the plan that has been provided shows an excess of landscaping above and beyond the city's landscaping requirements. The only reason I just always kind of put an asterisk next to the plan that's been provided is that plan is subject to change. They obviously, the zoning is not contingent upon how many trees they show on a plan. But, you know, that's hopefully something that they will continue to keep as part of their development moving forward if this request is approved.
Could it be a requirement if this request was approved?
You know, the Planning Commission has the opportunity to add conditions to their approvals when reviewing special use permits. I'm not aware of the same opportunity with zoning requests, unfortunately.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes, this has been a particularly frustrating item from the beginning. If you look at it and you look at the topography here, it does kind of make sense. It's an extension of stuff that's already there. It's on the same elevation. It's way below the road elevation. If there would be no vehicular access to the upper road, that limits the damage to anyone just driving by, or doesn't seem to hurt a thing. On the other hand, by it being that way, it's one of those things that by having time to discuss this, it seems that the residents and the developer could have come to some kind of an agreement where some of those things, such as no access to the road, could have been put in writing and made a part of the plan, and that the buffer zone could have been put in writing and made a part of the plan. and satisfied those residents that this was not going to harm their property value as it stands now. And it really doesn't look like it's going to me. It looks like it's a separate project. It looks like it fits with what's there. On the other hand, that hasn't been done. There's been practically no movement in this since the first day it occurred. And I understand the 6-0 vote on the planning and zoning, but unless I'm mistaken, there were no objections at that planning and zoning. And I believe the people that objected then at the council meeting stated that they did not have any notification or were not aware of it at the time of the planning and zoning. So planning and zoning didn't have the opportunity to hear these other people and see what their objections were. So it's just been very frustrating all the way around. And obviously we're going to have to vote. And it's a toss up to me, but I'll vote one way or the other when the time comes. Thank you.
Any other comments from any alderman? Mr. C. You're muted, Jeff.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up. So Joel, as I recall on that P&Z meeting, you went through all of the things that were required to notify all of these residents. Is that correct?
We follow our regular process of publishing it in the newspaper, which happens to be the Tri-Lakes Daily News,
Right.
at least 14 days ahead of the meeting, and then providing postcard notification mailings to property owners within 185 feet of the subject property.
Right. So it's sort of a argument as to whether they got it. I mean, there's no question that we did it, but then, there's the argument that they didn't do it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made comments at that time. I don't recall it that way, but.
Sure. And I'll just make the further comment that when we send out those postcards, they do have both the Planning Commission and the Board of Alderman meeting date published on them. So I don't know if there was confusion in how the information was provided or presented. But I just mentioned that we only do one, and it provides all the information in one mailing.
Right. And I don't remember which meeting it was, but I think there was discussion that the developer, I thought they had put that in writing about the tree buffer. And I think they were looking at helping out that POA with some improvements. And, there was discussion with them, as I remember, because I know that they were making those concessions, to try to give something back to that subdivision. Sure. And I don't know if it was in writing or not. I don't know if that was done.
Sure. No, we've been in multiple conversations with the applicant. I think, as I mentioned, with the property to the south of the two that are included in this request, we were under the impression that there was some agreements that were being formed that led to that annexation request, an extension of sewer. And we were shocked that after all that property owner was opposed to this request. So,
right.
We've kind of been along for the ride as well, and wish things, could have gone smoother, obviously too, but we stand by that. Our recommendation is for this to be approved.
Right. So just to be clear, they have to do something according to our ordinances about having the vegetation buffer. I think what we're kicking back and forth here is how big and what it'll look like. So I would think under the circumstances of all these discussions that they would make it as big as they could.
Yeah,
but that's just my opinion.
And as far as the roadway, I think the topography is the limiting factor there. There's no way they could possibly get a road connection from down below to that road. It's impossible. It would take a lot of more engineering and more money, and I just don't think it's possible, just from my standpoint. So I think that's really a non-issue, but definitely the landscaping, and we do have codes that will require landscaping along that edge regardless. But we will do everything in our power and our abilities to get the applicant to do what's right along that edge through our normal processes and building permits if the zoning is approved.
Right. And I know that we didn't discuss this road much, but I was aware, and that really would have encroached on the Kirby property.
Absolutely.
The one we just annexed for the water and sewer. And I think that was the concession was that, instead of just doing low shrubs or something, they were going to do something more, I don't know, like ospreys or something rapidly growing type of stuff. So, okay, that's all I got. Thanks, Joel.
Mr. Mayor, just one last thing. I'm going to set the earthquake in motion to agree with Mr. Milton here. See a smile come out of Larry and Jeff. Is the issue of the trees. I get what Tim was saying. I want to see some larger vegetation to go in there. And if that satisfies those people, be it whatever it is, I don't want to see a little half-foot dogwood tree go up in there and say that satisfies with what the intent of this board is. I think that they should honor the intent of what we're saying here to Alderman Milton and Bob and Julia and Jeff. Haven't heard out of Jamie yet what he feels about it, but yeah, this needs to be substantial vegetation put back into those places. And I'll put myself on mute after that.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please read again what we made a motion and a second to? So it's now an opportunity for a vote to take place.
Your Honor, this is the first reading Bill number 5962, an ordinance approving high-density residential HDR zoning for the properties located at 121 Linhart Lane, Branson, Missouri. And if I can confirm that we had a motion and a second at our last meeting and the postponement occurred after that. So the motion and the seconds on the floor, we would be ready for a vote.
Just a comment. This is a first reading.
Yes.
To look at this again. So would you please call the roll?
King.
Nay.
Whitus.
Yes.
Simmons. Alderman Simmons, you're on mute.
I'll try that again. Thank you. No.
Gaines.
Yes.
Milton.
No.
C.
You're on mute, Jeff.
That's a yes.
So I'm showing a vote of 3 yes and 3 no. That would bring in Mayor Akers for a vote.
Thank you. Yes.
The item passes 4-3.
The first reading.
Thank
you. Let's go to item number 9. We have a report from Jonas Argus. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction?
Your Honor, this is the report by Jonas Argus on the Tenney County Partnership 2020 year-end review.
Your Honor, members of the board, can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Did that work?
Yeah, Jonas, you're good. Looks
okay.
Good.
Okay. Well, all right, Your Honor, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity, the time this evening. If by the looks of the agenda, I'm about the halftime show. I'm going to try to be brief and go through a high-level review of some of the activities of the partnership in 2020. Just be upfront, I'm not going to focus if very little time on COVID-related activities. Just as a reminder, when this all started back in the late winter, spring, the chamber staff split into action teams, and most of you were engaged with us in activities, or at least participants through all of that. And then my role changed a little bit in mid-July when I took on the role of the
interim president and CEO in the meantime of hiring a new president and CEO. So I'm going to keep it to the basics, and please feel free to raise your hand or jump in here if you have any questions. So, okay, right out of the gate, I'm not moving give me just a second, sorry. I think it froze on me. Okay. Next slide, can you see that? Okay, so pretty consistent here as far as partners. You'll notice that public sector has dropped to 9. We did add 1 new public sector in 2022, that being Kirbyville Schools, but unfortunately we lost Taneyville and Merriam Woods due to budgetary constraints from what they told us. And I believe that Taneyville is actually considering the process of unincorporating. So, but business sector stayed consistent there, just shy of 30 at 28. Focal Point was a new company that came on early prior to COVID, and due to market issues, they then dropped out pretty quick. So, next slide, total project activity. You'll see here for 2020, total 4 announced projects compared to 2 in 2019 and 6 in 18. You'll see there at the bottom, 3 of the 4 were inside the city limits. The majority of those stats do cover the Imagine Branson Resort or Imagine Resorts project that was announced back in August in Hollister. So that's roughly 260 million of that capital investment. So project activity was down, and under the circumstances that can be understandable. Then just since beginning in 2012, the stats: announced projects 32, total new jobs estimated 1,188, new payroll over 32 million, capital investment announced just shy of 800, just shy of 80 under construction, and just shy of 200 million completed. And of those 32, 20 are within the city limits of Branson. So currently in the pipeline of projects we are tracking, you'll see here the stats on the left as far as jobs, payroll, investment, other things. The industry sectors represented on the right, the majority of which are tourism, retail, lodging. Housing has continued to be strong. A lot of that can be attributed to the 2018 housing study, and also market influences this past year. It's been pretty hot, so we're seeing that. Again, 16 of the 27 currently tracking on our project report are within the city limits of Branson. So 2020 was the middle of our 3-year action plan. Again, the 3 areas of focus: business, industry, traction, and marketing, focused on asset-based development, and then BR&E, business retention expansion, driving for that year-round economy. I think you'll see and agree that 2 of our bigger projects that we were involved with and provided assistance to opened up this past year during the pandemic, both Wonderworks and the aquarium at the boardwalk. And the reason I mention those again, those are year-round attractions, and every little bit that we get to push that year-round economy is always welcome. So, and then also workforce development. That is a whole different animal that had its challenges prior to 2020, and I'll touch on a little bit more of that here in just a second. But talent development, retention, and attraction. We will be in September of this year of 21, August-September timeframe, as a board, be developing our new 3-year action plan, 22 through 24. So one of the things we did do that took up a lot of time and effort in the latter half of 2020 was that we helped the county, Taney County Commission, with the CARES Act funds that were distributed. So we served as a review committee. So we had 8 current board members serve as the application review committee for those funds. So we're currently wrapping up phase 3. Political subdivisions, not-for-profits, and small businesses were eligible to apply for those COVID-related expenses incurred from March 1 through December 30. One of our objectives in offering to provide assistance was to make sure that all the funds that were allocated for Taney County would end up staying in Taney County. And I'm proud to report that based off the meeting we had with the County Commission on, yesterday, actually, the phase 3 requests are so that we are for sure going to, put all that money back into the community. There's actually more funds requested in this last phase than there are available. So there will be some type of splitting of those funds, proration. The County Commission, I expect them to make those decisions here in the next week or so. So 6.56 million of the CARES Act that was set for us is staying here. So that was a good exercise, and we were happy to provide that support. And hopefully that made that process a little bit easier for the county and helped our local businesses and employers. So,
Jonas,
I mentioned work. Oh, yeah, Larry.
Larry, I was asked the question on the Taney County CARES Act funds. Was that tied to communities that had masking mandates?
No. I think you might be confused with the marketing money through the Missouri Division of Tourism.
Okay, so Hollister businesses receive these funds also?
Yeah, so in the first 2 phases, or the first phase, phase 1, it was only governmental entities and not-for-profits that were allowed to apply. And then phase 2, we brought in small business. And then also phase 3, it was the same as phase 2, political subdivisions, not-for-profits, and small business. And any entity within either doing business in or headquartered in or domiciled in Taney County were able to apply for those funds. These were the funds that were distributed through the state treasurer's office from the CARES Act.
Okay, thank you, Jonas.
Yeah. So touching a little bit back on workforce development, one of the things we did do in collaboration with chamber staff, Grant and his team is launched Imagine Branson. Actually they ended up launching it after the new year, but all the work was done during 2020. This is our new digital platform of the relocation guide that we revived a few years ago in print form. So now imaginebransonmo.com is live and will be serving as the platform to house information for relocation, investment, quality of place, quality of life, economic development data, and so on. So, for instance, On Point Mo, the jobs board, will be living behind Imagine Branson Mo. We just signed a contract for the TaneyCountyPartnership.com to also reside within that website. So more things to come on that. But again, that's a way for us to attract talent, attract residents, and to put our best foot forward as far as folks looking to move here, invest here, open business here. So that's coming along. 2020 was what it was. Our J1 program, we ended up with about 50 students. Our H2B program was impacted by, international travel restrictions. Our Puerto Rico efforts were pretty much non-existent other than a few that we were able to recruit prior to March. So we look forward to getting back some of that supplemental workforce this year. I know we're getting some encouraging signs from our J1 visa sponsors that they're expecting higher than what we would have expected participation. So 70% is the number we've heard recently. So just as a point of reference, in 2019, we had roughly 1,200 summer work travel program kids in the community. In 2020, we had 50. So if we get back to that 70% of the 1,200, that will be a big help. One of the things that we weren't able to do in 2020 and again in 2021 is our Community Workforce Summit and Taney County Career Days. Actually, I take that back. We did do Community Workforce Summit in 2020. We got that in, but Taney County Career Days we had to pass. So instead of that, this year we're doing Workforce Wednesdays. We had our first one this past week. The next one is tomorrow. Jerry Henry's going to give a tourism industry update with that. And then we have a remote work presentation on the 3rd of March. And then we'll have a child care and education piece on March the 10th. Post-COVID, we can speculate, assume, workforce was an issue prior to, and it's going to continue to be an issue moving forward. But hopefully we'll find different strategies and improve on the strategies we've already employed to provide workers for our businesses as we foresee a pretty robust recovery once consumer sentiment has that safety and is ready to get back to traveling. We're positioned very well to take advantage of that. So I think other than that, I could sit here and take any questions, comments, criticisms. Here's the ways to connect with us. And I thank you again for your time.
Jonas? Yes, sir.
From our board, Mr. Skanes?
Can you put back up that, well, you don't have to put it back up, the J1 issue.
Yeah.
What are you hearing right now, Jonas? I know that's been a major issue for the hotels and the hospitality industry, that they were hurt by the restrictions. Are you hearing anything of that going to the other side and coming back? Go ahead.
Well, I think it's a double gut punch, really. If you think about it, you've got the H-2B program that's now turned into a lottery program, and it's been, it's no secret, it's been a political football for quite a while. There was an executive order by President Trump to cease a lot of those visa programs, and J1 was part of that. There was an injunction that lifted that back in December. Again, it's a cultural exchange program, with the benefit of those college students, those international college students working while they're in the United States, basically to help pay for their college education in their home country. So, that had ramped up significantly over the last, 4 years through 2019. When we got involved with the program, I think we had about 350 kids. And like I said, for that program in 2019, we had 1,200. Like I said, the visa sponsors that are prevalent in the Branson market are encouraged by the amount of response of the students. The caveat would be, depending on, again, travel restrictions, either through the U.S. or through their home countries, if those, if that optimism can carry through into the season.
So you see that as a major restriction, or the major impediment is the coming in or out of the United States from countries that we don't have a real good relationship with on the COVID type situations?
Yeah, Bill, I don't know how to answer that, because I think we get so many kids from so many different places. A lot of Eastern European kids. We get a lot of kids from the Caribbean, Jamaica. We were starting to get some South American kids. But we'll be ready for the kids that do come. Will it be 2019 numbers? That would be foolish to think that we get back to there yet. I think we'll get back there some point, but not this year. We have strong partnerships with our visa sponsors. Branson, even though it doesn't have beach in the name, is a very, very attractive location for these students. Part of that is the is the endorsements we get from the kids that have been here and the amount of fun and the experience and the cultural experience they do get when they're here. We have great employers that treat these kids great, make sure that they get those experience that comes with the program. You know, one thing, it's actually now it's going to be, the rebranding to Bridge USA is going to be the name. So it's probably going to take me 18 months to stop calling it the J1 program, but it's actually Bridge USA through the Department of State. So I know Izzy does a great job managing that program for us. They've had their first J1 community support group meeting, I believe last week. But I did not have a chance to debrief with her after that. And I think Assistant Administrator Manning is a part of that as well. So, but you know, again, it's a great opportunity to take advantage of that cultural exchange program and provide some supplemental workforce for our employers.
Last question, is there anything we can do as a board to facilitate that process, to move it along further, or is it following its natural path as it goes?
Yeah, no, I think locally I'd give our, I'm biased, but I'd say I'd give us a, B+, A-. How do we run this program? And so, it's influences outside of our control, national governments and health concerns and travel restrictions, that those will have the biggest negative impacts if, that touches on this. So.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Any other comments from Alderman?
Mayor, can I go?
Yes, Jeff.
Bob, are you unmuted, or did you want to talk?
I'm unmuted. I was debating whether to talk or not. I am the council's representative to the to whatever that is. I'm the representative on the board.
Partnership.
Yeah, the partnership, the Taney County Partnership. This is, and I've really enjoyed that the last 3 or 4 years. I've served in the past years on several other economic development boards in the area, including TEPCOR, which is the immediate predecessor of this, for 15 years. And this effort is by far the most successful that as a group we've had. And I think it's a real value to the city. Previously, we've been parts of TEPCOR. We were had our own economic development department, which I imagine cost us 6 or 7 times as much money as it is to join and participate in this. I think that this year was an unexpected example of what can happen when you have a group formed and sitting there, that they were able to help businesses get information out. In this unusual year, all that was put together. They were able to help with the CARES Act at the same time that Jonas was asked to serve as an interim executive director of the chamber. So we've gotten tremendous benefit out of this, and it's a great organization, and I hope we continue to support it and increase support in the future. Thank you. I'm sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to butt in.
No, you've been sitting there, so.
Alderman.
Okay, Jonas, first, thanks for being here. And I will echo what Alderman Simmons just said about this program. So I know we talked about the CARES Act money, but touch on me with the allocated funds for tourism. And I think you mentioned something about masking ordinances did or didn't need to be in place to receive those funds.
Yeah, so what you're referring to is on the CVB side, the chamber CVB side. So the Missouri Division of Tourism, through that same CARES Act federal legislation, was granted $20 million for the state for marketing. And $15 million of that was made available to DMOs, destination marketing organizations throughout the state, obviously, which the Branson Lake Area Chamber of Commerce and CVB is the DMO for Taney County. To qualify to access those marketing dollars, which we ended up securing just shy of just shy of 3 million. I think 2.8 million, somewhere around there, of marketing money. There had to be either visual or stated safety measure in reference to facial coverings. If you did not have creative or photography or print that didn't have something to associate with face coverings, then you would not qualify to access those marketing funds.
Gotcha.
We were successful in doing that. And so again, between ourselves and Stone County, that was right around 3 million.
Gotcha. So I'll assume that Hollister wouldn't be receiving those funds. Are they considered part of the DMO, or how does that work?
So exactly. So the branch, the parent company, the Branch Lake Area Chamber of Commerce and CVB, is the DMO for all of Taney County. So Hollister would fall under that designation.
Right. So as far as this COVID money that's sort of been still kicked around about the COVID relief package, where like $195 per resident, are you up on any of that, of how that's going to be distributed?
Are you referring to pending legislation, or?
Yeah, the pending legislation of I didn't see the nuts and bolts of how that would be distributed, other than by city population count. And I think the county would get something based on their percentages also.
So, okay, I'm not read up on this. What are you, is there some language in there referring to public sector or public entity assistance based on?
It would be about the same thing, where there would be the mask mandate, since it was COVID relief. And of course, this is the projected package that if it would or would not go to cities, it didn't have some sort of ordinance in place.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm not sure. I haven't read about that.
Yeah, I just read the highlights of that. So do you have a comment on the Forbes article rating us number 4 as far as tourism destinations, as far as people feeling safe coming to Branson?
Yeah, I have a comment. We don't pay Lynn Berry enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kudos to Lynn for getting us on that list. That's a great way to kick off spring break.
Right. Enough said. So as far as priorities with CVB and you guys up there at the chamber, is the safety of our guests and letting that be known to them, maybe through our advertising or our messaging, is that a top priority?
No, Jeff, as of January the 15th, I became back to the executive vice president and not the chief marketing officer or the president and CEO. But I have to say, yes, the safety of our guests is a high priority.
Thanks. Thank you, Jonas.
You bet.
Jonas, thank you. Larry, Mr. Milton?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Jonas, all of us, I think, really appreciate all the work and effort you've done. Obviously, you were thrown a curve in 2020, but I know you have your hands on the ball, and I'm looking forward to the growth we're going to be seeing from the partnership in this year and next year. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's I've said many times, if I would have found this career 30 years ago, I'd be a 40-year veteran now.
Thanks, Jonas. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Jonas, thank you very much. And
thank you again. Appreciate the support and the time.
You betcha. I think we're ready to move on to item number 10, which is a resolution. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction?
Your Honor, this is a resolution approving 2021 citywide volunteer litter cleanup days.
All right. Have a staff report from Chris Lebeck.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. This item is actually sponsored by Alderwoman King, so I'm going to turn it over to her and let her talk about this exciting opportunity for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Your Honor and Alderman, I just want to take some time to hopefully inject some positivity in our community. I have been serving on our board for, I think this week will be 6 months for me. And I hope I have found an opportunity to bring about positive community involvement. So this is a resolution in support of creating the first annual Community Volunteer Litter Cleanup Days. Based on recent social media chatter about litter and trash in certain areas, we have an opportunity as a community to come together and address these concerns through a volunteer cleanup effort. Neighborhood or citywide cleanups are a popular method employed by municipalities throughout the United States to improve the health and attractiveness of their areas to potential residents and visitors. They also have an immediate and positive environmental impact on streams, lakes, parks, and public right-of-way. This resolution will allow the city administrator and staff to provide logistical support to myself in my initiative to start and coordinate this program in the month of March during the last 3 Saturdays of March. I can list several reasons why this is important and beneficial, but I'll just highlight a few. Trash, litter, driving down the roads, it's an eyesore. It's going to make its way to our waterways, which has a negative impact on our fish and wildlife. I also think that it is a safety and health concern for the children in our community and the children that visit with their parents. I see small kids are curious. They like to pick stuff up and put it in their mouth every chance they get. So the less trash around available for them to do that, the better. And it can be costly because it can deter tourism if people come and see trash in our town on our main roads, and it also decreases property values. So I would love for this to be an opportunity for our community to come together, get it cleaned up, not just this year, but every year, so that we can keep Branson beautiful. I look forward to your support, and I am open for any questions you guys have.
Thank you, Julia. Any aldermen have any comments?
I think it's a great thing, Mr. Mayor, and a long time coming for those of us that have been complaining about trash trucks dumping stuff out all over the roads, diapers, you just name it in places. And it's and I appreciate you, Julia, for taking something like this on. That's true leadership.
Thank you. Mr. Milton?
Jillian, I appreciate what you're doing also. Where can the community find information, for example, where to meet, in what times, and what to bring? And
great question, Larry. So I will have it set up with our IT department. Should our board approve that our city resources can support this effort every year, then our city website will be a place where the community can go. Right there on the homepage, there's going to be a volunteer sign up link. They could fill out their information and secure their volunteer packets. It's going to have the locations of where to meet and all the helpful details they'll need to be involved.
Yeah, Jeff C.
Yeah, so looking at your schedule there, the 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., obviously that could run over, right? not a real firm times, because I think if you get some people out and they're making progress, and then they may want to keep doing that. And then I'll just let you know that I won't be involved just in my ward. I will visit all of these here along, the other wards also on those days. And so when we discussed this a while back, did you make any contact with the county about Fall Creek Road?
With the county about Fall Creek, I have not had an opportunity to speak with the county yet about Fall Creek Road.
But yep. There's a lot of misconception of roads that we use every day, and we catch a lot of grief from it, thinking that why are we not out there picking it up? Why is Public Works not out there? Mm-hmm. A lot of it's 65. A lot of it's Fall Creek Road. I lived down there 14 years in that Fall Creek corridor, and I mean, it was just, nonstop. So, so we just have to let people know that if we're doing this, it's going to be on safe streets, not going to be out on, Highway, 265 or something, picking up trash, that kind of deal. So I appreciate that you picked up the ball and are running with this, and I'm here to help you however I can.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, ideally we would target streets in each ward on each separate Saturday, but everyone is encouraged to participate in any ward of their liking, no matter where they live or work.
Right. And I'd like to, that'd be great to see this blossom into a spring and fall type of thing.
Absolutely.
Well, do your work.
Just a note that this was a citizen also initiative. We had citizens that contacted us, and Julia agreed to take up the ball and provide the leadership for us. Response to citizens and response to things that they see and let us know about, and then we react is what we're supposed to be doing. And so I appreciate the fact that we're responding as a city. All right. At this point in time, do I have a motion of adopting the resolution?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All right. We already done through a lot of discussion and talking, so we've got the motion, the second in place. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the roll call?
King,
I approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes, sir.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
It's a no-brainer. Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you very much. Next item is item number 11, another resolution. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is a resolution authorizing the police department to apply for Missouri Department of Transportation grant funding to fund youth alcohol enforcement within the city of Branson.
We'll now have a staff report from Jeff Matthews, and there's Jeff.
Mayor, members of the board, the next three items are actually all resolutions seeking authorization for the police department to accept Missouri Department of Transportation grant funds to fund three different projects. The first one is youth alcohol enforcement efforts, and it's a grant for $4,500. And this is one that the police department has gotten the last several years, and we recommend approval, and I'm available for any questions.
Right. No one signed up from a citizen standpoint. Any alderman wish to add anything? Sensing you want to vote, Madam Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Your Honor, I don't have a motion on the floor on these.
I make a motion that we approve this resolution.
I'll
Was I
second.
fast? In my mind, I did that. But, Yes, can I have a motion? We got a motion, Bill Skanes, second from.
Julia.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. Now would you please provide a roll call?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you. Item number 12, a resolution, as Jeff mentioned, the second of three. Madam Clerk, please give the introduction.
Your Honor, this is a resolution authorizing the police department to apply for Missouri Department of Transportation grant funding to fund hazardous moving enforcement with the city of Branson.
Jeff, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Mayor, this is a $6,000 grant application, and it really benefits the city because it puts officers out there searching out hazardous moving violations, and we recommend approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion adopting this resolution?
So move.
Is there-
I heard 3 seconds.
I didn't get to hear one, but is there a second?
Julia did.
Yeah, okay. All right. I assume the aldermen have heard what they want to hear, so let's have a roll call vote.
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The final of the three resolutions, Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction.
Your Honor, this is the resolution authorizing the police department to apply for Missouri Department of Transportation grant funding to fund driving while intoxicated traffic enforcement within the city of Branson.
I have a staff report from Jeff Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. This one as well makes a huge difference in the community if it's approved. It's a driving while intoxicated saturation patrol grant of $6,000, and we recommend approval.
Approval has been recommended. Do I have a motion adopting this resolution?
So moved.
There's so moved. There's a second in there, I'm sure, too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Do we have any citizens or aldermen wishing to add anything here?
Real quick question, Mr. Mayor. What time frame are you talking about, Chief, here? And what will these funds actually cover? Is this overtime or PR or?
No, sir. I'm sorry. It's overtime money that we can put officers out there during the peak DWI hours, typically 6 in the evening till 2 in the morning, searching out DWIs.
This is year round?
As long as the funds are available.
Thank you, buddy.
Any other aldermen? Have we, did I get a motion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. So we're ready to vote.
King,
Madam-
sorry.
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you, clerk. Item number 14 is a public hearing and the first reading of Bill 5963. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction of this item.
Your Honor, this is a public hearing and first reading of Bill number 5963, an ordinance approving the annexation of the properties located at 1800 Shepherd of the Hills Expressway, Branson, Missouri.
I will now open this public hearing. Then begin with a staff report from Joel Hornicle.
Mayor, members of the board, good evening again. We've got an annexation request of 3 properties, as you see outlined in purple on the screen, totaling just under 19 acres, more or less. Just to familiarize everybody with this area, we are looking at Shepherd of the Hills Expressway and Rourke Valley Road intersection, about in the middle of your screen. So these 3 properties, as you can see, are contiguous to the city limits and would not have a significant impact on the city's services. However, I do want to simply point out that this property owner is wanting to develop nightly rental cabins and attached to sewer, which led them to requesting annexation from the city. However, the applicant, the property owner, has done some fill within the floodplain, which is quite a bit of area up on these 3 properties. And so they're trying to sort that out with FEMA right now, as the fill was put in place prior to receiving approval to do so. We had a similar annexation about a year ago where we encouraged you all not to annex a property until it was in good standing with other agencies. And so similarly with this one, we would recommend the same to kind of sit on this one and let it get sorted out with FEMA. They are submitting documentation to FEMA this week through the county, since it is not within the city limits at this time. And they're also conducting an endangered species assessment on the property as required as part of that application. We hope to hear word in the coming weeks, but our recommendation would be to postpone until the April 27th meeting for your consideration.
Okay.
Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
You've heard the comments of Joe Hornicle. We have no one that signed up to speak. Any alderman wishing to address this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The question goes back to the issue with FEMA, Joel, and I've tried to educate myself a little bit on this, and I think we talked just a little bit. FEMA's not exactly known for being prompt with their decision. Is that April timeframe one that can be accurately stated?
Well, this is the first reading, so we're definitely hopeful to have an update from FEMA on the status of their application by that point. Not to say that, you know, it couldn't be delayed longer. They're about a year in on the process of working with FEMA at this point. You know, I think the property owners consultants agree that annexation was done a little prematurely, but they have petitioned you all for annexation. And so there's a clock for us to act upon, which is the public hearing tonight. And we're meeting those requirements. But from this point forward, again, our simple recommendation would be to not get involved with the county and FEMA on this process until it's resolved.
Just another real quick question. I'm looking at these little purple slithers that jumps the railroad tracks and goes over a little bit, but if my memory is pretty good at something like this, it looks like about half of that proposed annexation goes underwater several times a year.
Yeah, again, the property, there's a significant amount of floodplain and floodway on the property. I believe we provided in a packet, and I think I'm not sure if I have it available tonight, but it was part of our staff report to show the extensive amount. But you're exactly right. Other than kind of the northeast corner of the property along Shepherd Hills Expressway, there's quite a bit of development constraints within these three properties. And we do believe that given the right timing and once things are worked out with FEMA, that we would rather be working with this applicant on development, if at all, as opposed to the county. Given its proximity, we would hate to have it have any negative effect on anything downstream through this valley, this beautiful valley of the community, this greenway that's been growing every year, and eventually Lake Taneycomo. So we are happy to be involved. We're happy that they've brought this request forward. It's just, again, I know I've said it multiple times, but we want to have it in good graces with FEMA before we bring it in completely.
That's wise.
Mayor?
Any other comments? Yes, Mr. C.
So nothing with DNR, it's just FEMA on this one?
That's our understanding. So they would have needed a no rise certificate from FEMA to place fill within the floodplain. That was the approval that they did not get. So now they're working for a conditional letter of map revision to basically state that the fill that's been added to the floodplain did not have a negative effect on the floodplain, whether upstream or down. If they're successful in able to show that to FEMA, then they'll be in good standing.
So was this just they started working, really weren't aware of they may be approaching on something?
I can't speak for their actions or their thought process, but you know what was shared with us from their consultants was the property owner was mining for topsoil. And so they removed quite a bit from the property, and then to basically fill the hole that was created from the topsoil, they dug out, they filled it back up. It's just they filled it higher than what they took out. So that was the problem.
Right. So I would assume they'll have to look into just how much in Dutch they are with FEMA and what it may cost to satisfy them. So I don't know if the applicant has looked into that yet, or is that part of the time that we need to give them?
Yeah, I think that's part of the time we need to give them. This isn't something that just came up. Again, to point that out, they've been working with FEMA for the last year on correcting this issue. And so they're finally to the point of submitting the formal application. I believe this week it was to be submitted. And so we will be in contact with FEMA all the way through until we have documentation from them provided to us that they've met all the requirements and they're in good standing.
Right. And I understand what they're trying to do, and it's a good idea, but yeah, they got to get their ducks in a row. So, you know, I agree this is something we should postpone.
Any other comments? Then could I, if there's going to be a vote, then it would be a vote. The first thing, can we do this from a legal standpoint, Chris? Go ahead and vote to postpone until April, what was the date, 27th?
Mr. Mayor, we need a motion to do that.
Can I
in
stop?
a second.
Can I have a question, please? We're in the middle of a public hearing. We have a public hearing open.
Okay.
Mr. Lebec or Director Hornicle may want to end that public hearing, or I'm not sure if we want to put that postponement in the middle of that.
Okay, I can go ahead from my calendar here or my stuff to pronounce that the public hearing is now closed.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
And you've heard the first reading of Bill 5963. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
It's so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Discussion.
Yes, sir. I'm confused on this motion. We're not wanting to approve this bill. We're wanting to postpone. Am I correct?
Yeah, but they said I have to have a motion on the floor first.
I believe that was a motion to postpone it. It would be in order now if somebody would want to make that motion.
Okay. All right. There's a motion now.
Make a motion to postpone this bill until the April whatever date meeting. Somebody help me with the date there, 12th, 11th?
27.
27. Okay, there it is.
All right. There's been a motion to postpone till April 27th. Is there a second?
Second.
The second's been made. All right. We now vote on the postponement. Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes, on the postponement.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes, on postponement.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The motion to postpone was approved 6-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're ready now to move on to item number 15, first reading of bill number 5964. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5964, an ordinance amending Chapter 94 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to nightly rentals.
I have a staff report from Joel Arnicle.
Mayor, members of the board. Hopefully this one's a little easier tonight than the previous two. We'll see. Nightly rentals has become increasingly more and more popular, especially over the last 5 years. Prior to that time, we were able to get by, so to speak, with a very simple code in the business license chapter 22. Through our efforts with increasing the zoning code and making it more user-friendly and more flexible, we did add some requirements for nightly rental, but still just scratching the surface. Over the past year, there were some complaints that were raised with a particular area in the community that was allowed to have nightly rentals. However, one of the ones causing some of the issues was an unapproved nightly rental, and the other one was approved. So just wanted to make note of that. But since that time, we've had both Alderman Gaines and Alderman Simmons, along with staff, working with representatives of that neighborhood to try and find an opportunity to solve these issues that they were encountering. What we identified were a couple opportunities in Chapter 94 of the zoning code. However, I do want to point out that there's more that can be done in other areas of the code, which we are actively pursuing and taking a look at, and hope to be bringing those in the future. It's going to be more of a comprehensive effort to single out nightly rentals into its own area of the code book. But until that time, we at least wanted to address the concerns the best we could for the neighborhood, which are the two items we're bringing before you all this evening. The first one being to not allow nightly rental of individual rooms within a home. That would only allow people to rent entire homes. You hear some scary stories out there in the world of people renting what they think is an entire property, and they show up and they're actually sharing it with someone for the week. And we're trying to avoid that situation and make sure everybody's safe and are confident when they rent a nightly rental in Branson that it'll be a safe property for just themselves and their family and friends. The other recommendation we're making for a code change is we have several planned developments in our community, as you all very well know, and they're very vague. So we do the best we can to interpret those, as a lot of them were approved about 15 years ago or so. And since we've made so many drastic changes to our zoning code, we run in from time to time that their uses that are allowed within those planned developments are not well stated. And nightly rental, being it's a newer topic for the community, it's more often than not called out in those planned developments. So our secondary code request is to not allow nightly rentals within planned developments unless they're specifically stated. I will say that Point Royale is one that comes to mind immediately, that they do specifically call out nightly rental as being allowed. So it will not change that situation. After our review, we can't think of any other negative effect that this will cause in any of the other planned developments. And it does allow other planned developments in the future to come forward and add that to their list of allowed uses. So they do have opportunities in the future. It wouldn't limit them from that if they so choose. As a result, staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, you've heard the first reading of Bill 5964. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
There's been a motion. There's been a second. Julia. Madam Clerk, I think there's some speakers for this. Will you please read their names and addresses for the record?
Honor, we have one speaker tonight on this item. It's Jody Maderas. Her address is 215 Tyler Street, Branson, Missouri.
One moment, Mayor. Just bringing her in now. Ms. Medeiros, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Wonderful. Mayor Akers, Board of Aldermen, good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to this issue number 15 on your agenda. I'm delighted to be with you on this nice, warm Branson evening. My name is Jody Medeiros, and I am the homeowner at 215 Tyler Street. And tonight, I speak to you, and I am representing all the homeowners of the Tyler Street Neighborhood Watch, a new organization of homeowners we formed last year. As the organizer of this watch, I'd like to first thank the city staff and Branson Police Department, the Planning Commission, and especially Alderman Skanes and Simmons for doing an outstanding job at taking up the issue of nightly rentals. I just want to take a moment also to tell you why it's important to vote yes for the proposed amendments to Chapter 94. In a nutshell, in 2018 and 19, the Tyler Street homeowners witnessed and documented numerous instances, and I mean numerous, of illegal drug use, underage drinking, disturbing the peace, racial harassment, and illegal parking, all of which were tied to the nightly rentals. As you can imagine, we quickly realized that these instances are the consequences of having nightly rentals in residential districts. And by the end of 2019, we had enough of this behavior. Enough was enough. These events were intolerable and unacceptable, and I hope you'll take my word for that. Also, just as a practical matter, I'm happy to share with you supporting documentation and testimony if you need that from me. And lastly, let me just say, on a personal note, the one thing I have learned, pardon me, from this experience is that we homeowners here value community, and we value our community safety over making a quick buck with some of this property. And so on behalf of the Tyler Street Neighborhood Watch, I'd like to ask, and I thank the aldermen for voting yes when the votes occur. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Medeiros. All right, any alderman wishing to speak to this issue? Mr.
Yes, sir. Let Mr. C or Simmons go first. The elder Mr. Simmons.
I'll step out of the way. All I was going to say is.
All right. I'll let you guys arm wrestle over it. Mr. Simmons.
This has been a typical government thing, and this neighborhood has had a great deal of patience with us. However, it is not a simple item. Everything that you do affects other neighborhoods and other developments. And so I appreciate Joel with the planning development going through this and making sure we are not doing things that are going to cause problems somewhere else that are equal to these. The neighborhood certainly has had a problem. I think we all know of places like this, and we can see how it can easily happen. And this is really just step one. And as Joel has stated, hopefully other steps will follow, particularly placing responsibility for these places. Any other business in Branson has to have a person appointed that's responsible for that business that can be contacted. And that hasn't been the case in these nightly rentals. So hopefully there's more we can do later. But this is a good start, and I hope you all are in agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Mr. C?
Yeah, so I was going to praise Alderman Simmons and Skanes for doing the legwork on this. I know that neighborhood pretty well, and I've seen some of the shindigs down there, and it was pretty bad. I really felt for all the homeowners down in there having to put up with that, and I'm glad this is happening here. And then at P&Z, there was about the renting the whole house as opposed to parts of it is. And I had an incident with a really egregious one where they had 4 different families in one single family residence. So closing up these loopholes and stuff, it needs to be done. So just thank you guys for doing the legwork on that.
Thank you. Mr. Skanes?
Yes, sir. To echo Bob's statements and thank Jody for coming on. We've met with them a couple of times, went into their homes, and we have been taking a little bit of guff on social media for the Facebook theologians out there that thinks that Branson has not been doing anything on this, but it's process. like Jody said, and we've laid that out right up front. And I know that Joel did, and the police. I think the chief was there, and some other officers were there, and we heard what they had to say. We've asked the staff to take some action, and they have. Sometimes things don't move as fast as we want them to, do they, Bob? Really wish they would, but at least we're there now. Thank you.
Any other comments in regard to the vote on this? Mr. Milton?
Yeah, for clarity, what we're saying is that what we're wanting to do is to say that we can no longer rent rooms in a house, correct?
Individual rooms, that's correct.
So is that the business model of Airbnb?
I believe that they offer individual rooms within people's homes as an option, correct? But we still, as a community, have the opportunity to set regulations and set how that functions within our community.
Okay, well, clearly I'm understanding of the neighborhood that we're referring to. But by passing this, what we're saying is the Airbnb business model will not be allowed in the city of Branson.
I don't think that's an entirely true statement. I mean, Airbnb still has the opportunity to function as it always would for units. It's just individual rooms within a home would not be able to be rented. The thing about Branson, I say this quite often, other cities have utilized nightly rentals as an opportunity to bridge the gap with a lack of lodging options in non-tourist towns, whether they have an arena or a college team and they see an influx of visitors for different events, but they don't have the hotel rooms maybe to support those events. We are on the flip side of that, where we are lucky to have so many different lodging options, whether it's hotels or condos or cabins or the nightly rental products that we've seen being constructed. So we've never needed as a community the opportunity to have Airbnbs within our core neighborhoods, our core residential areas. And so, that's where you see a lot of other communities taking advantage of nightly rental opportunities. And so they need a lot more restrictions for this topic than we do, because ours are largely located in commercial areas. So I definitely understand the concern that you're bringing up and the point you're bringing up, but knowing that nightly rentals are not allowed anyways in our core neighborhoods, I really don't see this as being something that occurs very often. But this one neighborhood was definitely an opportunity for people to do that, and we want to prevent that from happening in the future.
Are there any other solutions that we could provide for this neighborhood to resolve their problem? And obviously, it sounds like it's a big problem that needs to be addressed without painting the wide brush across the whole city.
We looked at this very, very hard. As Alderman Skanes and Simmons pointed out, it took a lot more time than any of us would have liked. But anytime we came up with an idea or a solution and we started kind of throwing darts at it, we realized that the ripple effect it would cause would be far more negative to the community than positive. And so we'd have to retreat and go back and look at other potential solutions, arriving at the two we've presented this evening. The other big loophole that we still believe needs to be addressed is this whole idea of I think Alderman Simmons was the one that mentioned it, where we have a management company that's representing the property here in town, whereas the property owner may live some other state or even country, and that management company can quickly add properties to its portfolio without going through an extensive review of all departments and staff on being added. And then the difficulty comes on who the responsible party is and who's responsible for any illegal activities that take place at that home. So that's what we want to try and tighten up in the future. The other aspect we want to tighten up is just making sure that anybody that rents within a nightly rental within the community understands the rules and regulations. What is our noise ordinance? What are our litter and other nuisance ordinances? Have a set of rules, so to speak, that have to be published within a nightly rental, so that anytime somebody walks in that property, they know what the rules are here in Branson and what they need to abide by.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Mr. C.
I'm pretty familiar with VRBO and Airbnb and such. And I'll tell you, staying in a room with the homeowner there or somebody else is the exception. It is not the rule. It is not the model of that. I mean, I myself would not rent a room with the owner of the property there. It's just, I'm sure it happens, and it's probably more of a really cost-saving type of thing, you know, to just go in and just rent the room. But that doesn't happen that often. And the problem in all the instances I know is the fact that the people came from, I don't care how far away they came, they didn't find out they were sharing it with 3 other families till they got here.
Sure.
And they had no places to go. And they were as shocked as anybody else. And, you know, so having something like this, you know, where everybody knows in advance that this can't be done here in Branson, it's too late when they get here, especially at peak times. They just have no place to go if that's a situation they do not want to adhere to. So those are my thoughts.
Obviously, neighborhood friendly is something that we'd like to have, and we'd like to have people feel like that they have some say in their neighborhoods. And so I appreciate Mr. Medeiros making his comments. And are you ready to vote? Madam Clerk, please provide the roll call.
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
You're muted, Bob.
Yes, you don't accept sign language?
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, it passes 6-0.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons, I believe that the clerk loves to hear your voice, so that's why we want to make sure to hear that. All right, ready to move on to item number 16. It's a first reading of a bill number 5965. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5965, an ordinance approving the addendum with HDR Engineering Incorporated for professional consultant services between the City of Branson and HDR Engineering Incorporated for subgrade analysis and preliminary engineering of a flood protection systems at the city's Compton Drive wastewater treatment plant, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract.
Thank you. I think we begin with a staff report from Kendall Powell. I believe I see Kendall's online.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. HDR Engineering is currently under contract for subgrade analysis and preliminary engineering of a flood protection system at the city's Compton Drive wastewater treatment plant. During the design of the flood protection wall, HDR has discovered that some subgrade conditions in the project area could allow horizontal movement or flex of the flood wall sheet piles, particularly when floodwater pressure is applied to the above grade sections. To address this issue, HDR needed to perform more stringent data analysis to ensure functional reliability of the proposed wall and eliminate any risk of these conditions causing a wall failure. HDR also become aware of recent discussions within the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers pertaining to flood wall height and exposure limits. The discussions are being driven by events that have occurred with flood walls along coastal regions. Design changes that are being discussed may not affect the design of the Compton project. However, if so, HDR will be able to make design adjustments and meet compliance. Because of additional field investigations, finite design analysis, and verification of construction compliance, the preliminary design schedule has been delayed. This amendment for a contract time extension will allow HDR an additional 47 days to complete the preliminary design. This phase of the design is now scheduled for completion by April 30th of 2021. HDR is scheduled to provide their findings and recommendations for the project to the Board of Aldermen at the March 18th, 2021 study session. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Kendall. Do I have you've heard the first reading of bill number 5965. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
Yes, sir.
There's a motion. Second?
Second.
Second. All right, we've got motions and seconds taken care of. We have no citizens that are signed up. Would any of the Aldermen wish to speak to this item or ask Kendall any questions?
Yes, sir. Ed, this is some of the concern that I said that I had from day one about this, that there's more than meets the eye, that I was a witness when they were building a lot of that stuff down there and what they had to do with the water and sewer lines and how deep they had to go. And that was my concern, part of what he's discussing right here. And I'm glad they're undertaking this because this is smart. It's going to save a lot of grief sometime in the future. You had to have seen it with your own eyes to believe it, literally.
Any other Alderman wish to add or have comments? Mr. Milton. You're muted,
You're muted, Larry.
There. Kendall, just one quick question. How high above the ground right now is this wall projected to be?
Approximately around 8 feet.
Okay. Thank you. That was it.
Any other questions? We'll wait on the engineering report. That's actually what we're trying to do and get the information we need so that we'll have additional things come to us. Sensing you're ready to vote, Madam Clerk, would you provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ready to move to item number 17. It's a first reading bill number 5966. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5966, an ordinance amending the adopted 2020 budget for the city of Branson to adjust monies for the mandatory redemption, waterfall, and debt service payments in the debt service funds and general fund.
Okay. We have a staff report from Jamie Roush.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. As part of our year-end cleanup in preparation for our audit and to close out our financials for 2020, we have some debt service budget amendments that are before you tonight. The first one is the Branson Hills Shops and the Branson Hills debt, and that's a mandatory redemption. And basically what that means is excess revenue over and above the requirements to pay for the next 6 months debt will then spill over and go into a mandatory redemption. And so what that means is that we use that excess fund to pay off, could be a balloon payment at the end of the year, at the end of the term. And so that'll draw that principal amount down. So this is a good thing. It's a great thing. And we're the Branson Hills and Shops to the tune of $1,873,684 for the Branson Hills Shops. The next one is the waterfall flow of funds for the Branson Landing debt service. And basically, that is still the same thing. Is basically you meet, there's about 11 steps for the waterfall flow of funds for the Branson Landing. Once we've met the first step, then we go to the next step and so on and so forth until that extra revenue runs out. And so essentially what we're asking for tonight is a budget amendment to adjust this monies for the waterfall to spill over and to go down on the third debt issue, which is the 2011. And that is to $1,579,263. That's also a good thing because we have excess revenue. We've met our requirements for the first bond issue and the second bond issue, and now we're going to have monies for the third bond issue. So that's a good thing as well. The third one, this one is for the general fund subsidy in the Branson Landing IDA. And if you recall back when we did the COVID financials back in May, this is where this one comes in. We had involved in the COVID financials, we had assumed a $350,000 payment was going to have to come out of our general fund and go to subsidize the first part of this, one of the landing issues. However, it only ended up being $157,790. So that was good. However, we need to make sure that the budget amendment is in place. The transaction has already taken place because of the debt and how it's required. So this is just a cleanup item. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't often hear some of the terminology in financial reports that were just given to us. So, Mr. Milton.
Jamie, first off, let me thank you and John when we sat down and went over the TIFs that we have. But when I saw this bill, I sent over a few questions and asked for some documents on that. And I don't know that I was responded to those.
After we met, you did?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I didn't see that. I'll go back in and look for it. I'm happy to help provide information.
Yeah, it was addressing this bill in particular.
Okay. I'm sorry. I did not see that, but I'll go back in and look. Can I answer any questions? What are your questions?
Oh, I've had a couple Bud Lights since then.
That's okay. I'll look for your email. If I don't see it, I'll reach out to you, see if you'll send it to me again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Skanes.
The normal statement here, what you're asking for under standards, governmental standards, is normal, necessary, and reasonable in order to close out and to make these fund balances jive. I'm glad to see that we have any excess funds used to pay down the principal and save the debt in the long run. But I would go back to what Larry had said. If he had asked for something, he needs to be getting it.
Yes, sir. Again, I did not see that, so I'll go back in and look. Larry, when did you send that? Was it recently?
You're
on
muted,
mute, buddy.
It was right after the agenda was sent out when I was reviewing the agenda.
Okay. Well, I'll double check.
Thank you.
May I ask one more question, Mr. Mayor, just for verification, because I was writing this down from my own memory. The Branson Hills pay down was 1 million and what, Jamie?
The Branson Hills and Shops debt service pay down was, the mandatory redemption was $1,873,684.
Is this something that will happen, you figure, every year for a while? Is this an anomaly?
No, sir. We do these almost every year, thankfully, because the shops in the hills are doing so much better than were anticipated when these debt issues were originally come up with. So they are doing quite a bit better. So again, this is a good thing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Any other questions? Jamie, thank you. There's always good news to pay down debt. And paying off debt is a good thing. And I appreciate that. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the first reading of Bill 5966?
So moved. Second.
And there's
third, fourth.
So anxious to do that, huh? All right, we got a motion and a second. Don't have any citizens that are signed up. We've had some discussion already. So I'm ready, thinking you're ready to vote. So ask Madam Clerk to call a roll call.
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
D.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you. Ready to move on to item number 18. It's a first reading of bill number 5967. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction of this item.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5967, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Kimberling City Tire Company Incorporated for the purchase of tires, tubes, and services, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
All right. Have a staff report, Keith Francis, and there's Keith.
Mayor, members of the board, save the best for last year, I guess. An ordinance accepting this contract with Kimberly City Tire was approved by City Council on July the 9th of 2019 in a not to exceed amount of $65,000 for the dates of April 1, 2019 through March 31 of 2020. This included an option to renew the contract up to 4 additional successive one-year terms. Then on March 19th, 2020, a not to exceed amount of $65,000 for the dates of April 1, 2020 through March 31st of 2021. An estimate of $50,000 was budgeted in the transportation budget for this second renewal from April 1st of 2021 through March the 31st of 2022. Staff recommends approval of this and we're glad to answer any questions.
All right. You've heard the first reading of Bill 5967. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Milton. All right. Don't have any citizens that are signed up. Any alderman wishing to speak to this item?
Mayor.
Yes, Mr. C.
Keith, I'm going to go with what you told us, but I'd just like to thank you for your guys getting out and doing what they did in this this little storm we had, you know, going from what, minus 15 to 70 something. I'd like to think you had something to do with that. But I just want to thank you. I've reached out to you on a couple things, and I think both of them were on weekends, and you took care of them quickly and efficiently, and I just appreciate it. And the people that we helped out, they appreciated it too. So I just want to let you know that.
Appreciate that. Glad to help. Thank you.
Any other alderman wishing to speak? Mr. Milton.
Keith, your whole department, I just can't say enough about what you guys do for our community. 2 questions. Not to exceed is 65,000 and we budgeted 50,000. Do you know why
that's correct?
Do you know why?
When we was looking at our budget, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No.
When we was looking at our budgets to try to cut wherever we could cut some budget money out of the total budget for our department, we got to looking back a couple of years. And it seems like since we went to this lease program with the vehicles is one thing. And then we started looking at our overall fleet, trying to get rid of some of these older vehicles that we could do without and basically double up on maybe a vehicle or 2 here and there. So that cut out, you know, replacing tires and buying new tires. And I think that all in all, it had an effect on our overall budget. So hopefully I won't have to come back, you know, later on in the year to amend this budget. So we'll find out, I guess, some later on down the road. So.
Well, thank you for watching those dollars. The other question, I know last year when this same bill came up, I asked the same, I'm going to ask the same question and may get the same answer. We're using Kimberly City Tire because the state of Missouri goes out to bid for tires for all municipalities, I guess.
Correct.
And we don't get an RFP from tire companies within the city limits of Branson. Is that correct?
When we look at the state bid, just about everybody that is a local tire retailer is on the state bid. And we went through and pulled off all of the tires that we had used in the last years and looked at the make, the model, the type of tire. The police vehicles take a different type of tire, for example. So the Goodyear was the one that manufactured those type of tires, and that's why we chose to go with the state bid and choose the tires that we chose.
Okay. Same answer I had last year. Thank you.
I was pulling back way back of the drawer there. So
we are consistent. That's good. That's good. All right. Any other comments? Then at this point in time, Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call?
King.
Correct.
Whitus.
Yes.
Timmons.
Yes.
Gaines.
Approved.
Milton.
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 19 is disbursements, acknowledgement of disbursements between January 8, 2021 and January 29, 2021. Do I have a motion to acknowledge the receipt of disbursements from January 8, 2021 to January 29, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second? All right. Do we have any discussion? Anyone in reviewing the disbursements have any questions? Mr. Milton?
Jamie, would you, we have quite a few items that are marked final bill refund. Could you just briefly share with us what final bill refund means?
Yes, that is final bill for water sewer. So when they're closing out their water sewer bill and they have an amount that's left on their deposit, then we refund that amount.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Same question with the tourism deposit refund.
Sure. So for new businesses or revoked businesses in the past, we require a tourism tax deposit to be on file. And at the end of 3 years, if that business is good, it's in good standing, during September, we'll review every year those businesses that have met that 3-year requirement in good standing, and then we'll issue their deposit back to them. And that's what those are. So you'll typically see those around November and December.
That's what I thought it was. Just want to confirm. Thank you, Jamie.
Sure. You're welcome.
Any other questions from any alderman?
Where's my refund?
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, please provide a roll call.
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
We get to the point that we are coming to reports, and we have the aldermen who are available to speak for their wards and for things they want to say. Alderman King, begin with you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to express my gratitude for our aldermen in supporting our first citywide litter cleanup efforts. I thank you for your engagement on this. Since it has been approved, communications will start going out to the public. So if anybody wants to be a volunteer and care for the community to help pick up some of the litter, or if you're a business and you want to be a sponsor to help promote this event, that's greatly appreciated. If you can't figure out how to get involved as a volunteer or a sponsor once communications go public, don't hesitate to look me up on the Branson City website, where you can find my email address and phone number. So thanks again, everybody.
Just a clarification, Julia, there's also going to be information on the website for people about the dates and so on. All right, great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Alderman Whitus.
Julia, thank you for your efforts with this, leading this litter pickup. Appreciate you taking that initiative. Also, as you were asking for sponsorships, remember, I know a business that's going to help you out with some trash bags when you need them. So keep that in mind. Also, Keith and his crew, Jeff mentioned earlier, but just great job with the variety of weather we dealt with last week. And I just want to thank all the city workers and staff that with the road crews and different things, keeping our roads safe, and just all the tiring work that you did and just on our roadways and things. Just great job.
Thank you. Alderman Simmons.
Thank you. I'd like to ditto that with the road crews. I think they did a monumental task, like I said, with little effort and little fanfare, and just did their work and eventually went home. So great job, and I think everybody's grateful for it, whether they mention it or not. So thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alderman Simmons. Alderman Gaines.
I just want to echo what's been said, and it's getting 15 to 9 and people are pretty tired, probably listen to us talk. But for Julia has taken on and the organization she has given to this thing, it truly shows what sort of a leader she is. And I really appreciate that, because it takes a lot to stand up in a first term and take on something like that. The issue of the public works, police and fire, parks and rec, if we can pass a resolution sometime in the future, thanking these people for what they do, and Larry's going to buy all the pizza for them. So you know how that is. So my great appreciation to Jamie for building the wild water slide up there on the way down to Tanger. That was all frozen over. You did a wonderful job, Jamie. Just want to let you know, and appreciate that. And I'm sorry to hear that Larry had a pipe burst down. I called him and offered help if he needed it. And I think we need to do that periodically and help each other out. We may not all necessarily agree, but if he needs help, you know, we jump in and we help. So I'm just sorry to hear that happen, Larry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Skanes. Alderman Milton.
Bill, thank you for the kind words and thanks for reaching out. I appreciate that. I wanted to bring up, I've had several people contact me about our Liberty utilities. I know we've changed out, or excuse me, they changed out meters. And it seems that what I'm hearing is several properties, their utility bills went up substantially after the meters were changed out. And that was prior to this cold weather. Some are sharing that with the pricing going up from the meter changing out, now they're concerned with the cold weather, what that's going to do. And I was just wondering, Mayor, if we could maybe ask Liberty Utilities to address the board or address, give an understanding so our citizens can be educated and understand what's going on with the meters and the rates. That just seems to be a topic these days.
All right. Anything else for you, Larry?
Well, I didn't get a response.
Oh, I didn't realize I needed to respond to you right now.
Oh,
I'll speak here in just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. Alderman C.
Mayor, I've done my appropriate thank yous to all the people who deserved it this evening. I'm going to take the high road and I have nothing to report.
That high road gets you out close to Silver Dollar City, right?
It does.
Yeah. All right. Administrator Dobbins.
Mr. Mayor, just from my own side, we will be happy to reach out to Liberty. We have a really good working relationship with them and see what we could get them to put together to help with the request. And secondly, I will say that I will see you all in a few weeks. And last, just wanted to let Alderman Milton know he's very good about always copying myself or Assistant City Manager Manning in regards to his emails to staff. And I don't have anything, and John doesn't have anything, and Jamie doesn't have anything. So maybe it might be stuck in your sent folder or something. I don't know. But just send it to us again and we'll get the questions answered for you. And that is all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Administrator Dobbins. I appreciate the comments and the bringing up I've heard several comments from different types of entities. We've got businesses here in town that are franchise businesses that I've heard complaints from. It's not just Liberty, even though that name was brought out specifically. There are others, and we've tried to communicate with folks and let them know what their circumstances are. We have some real issues of people thinking they're in the city and they may pay a water bill to Water District number 3, but they pay sewer to city, and there's just confusion with some of the frozen pipes. I had a little lady today that just couldn't understand why I couldn't sign something and let her plumber come and fix her water meter. And she's, as we found, actually in Water District number 3. So there's just confusion because we're going to try to get all these areas of the city that are little islands and so on, and try to get our city more contiguous and see that we can take care of people better. I'm appreciative of the fact that we've got good communication and good discussion going on. This community is it's gone through a lot, just like a lot of communities have. And I'm really encouraged by the things I'm hearing from people about their hopes for the coming year, hopes that the vaccine will help to get us to a herd immunity type situation where we can look at things. We're also concerned about what might come down the pike, what the new variant might be in regard to COVID-19, and supposedly much more contagious, and the reason that we do things. There are a lot of reasons for a city to get involved and do things, but our primary function is still taking care of the safety of our citizens and do water and sewer and police and fire and those things that are done. Those are the issues for you all to deal with. And I appreciate the fact you've taken your citizens, the folks in your wards, and stood up for them and taken care of things. I'm encouraged that we will meet again here in April. Just a comment, when we were talking about Compton Sewer Treatment Plant, we are getting closer on the funding. We have gotten commitments on the design and engineering, the second level of the commitments that are connected through state funds, and then HUD funds from a federal standpoint are the final cap for that over $11 million that we've been trying to get. And it's the biggest issue, as far as I'm concerned, that we have, because the potential for a flood to take out the Compton Sewer Treatment Plant and put us out of business on many of our businesses on 65 or 76 Highway. So thank you all. Have a good evening. This way of doing business is different, but in a sense, we get to really see each other when we're up there on the dais. We can't see each other's faces, really. You know, you're looking out toward the audience so we can see your faces and see the passion or the pain, whichever comes in place. But I'm glad that we're getting these meetings and that our public and our people in the community can tune in and hear and see what goes on in city government. And I'm thankful for that. Well, at this point in time, do I have a motion to adjourn the Board of Alderman meeting?
Do you need one?
It's helpful. It's helpful. You'll get Lisa all over me if I don't get this done.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Lisa, no meeting by that. All right, there's a motion to adjourn the board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you now provide a roll call vote for adjournment?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Exodine.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Lord, yes.
Milton,
Absolutely, yes.
C.
No brainer. Yes.
The vote is 6-0. It passes.